Here's a fluid, conversational script around 2,500 words for a video review or explanation titled ***, could this end Israel's Gaza offensive? It integrates key developments, background context, strategic considerations, and nuanced perspectives, mixing technical clarity with accessible language. As requested, there are no headings or inverted commas, and it ends mid-thought. Imagine you're watching a video titled "Could this end Israel's Gaza offensive?" From the first frame, you're drawn into a tension-filled world. War, strategy, politics, humanity. What exactly is at stake when people pose this question? Could a particular move, plan, or moment bring the offensive to an end? Let's break it down, step by step, exploring the background, the unfolding developments, the design of the strategy, its performance under pressure, and the unique selling points of this scenario, but always in terms anyone can follow. Start by setting the scene. After nearly 2 years of conflict following the Hamas-led attack of October 7, 2023, Israel's military operations in Gaza have turned increasingly aggressive, targeting southern and central enclaves and carving out security corridors. One such launch was Operation Gideon's Chariots, kicking off mid-May 2025. Officially, Israel claimed to bring roughly 75% of Gaza under its control by early August, though Hamas still holds significant presence in contested areas. Wikipedia. Meanwhile, a surprise errant ground offensive in March broke a previous ceasefire, unleashing heavy bombardment that killed hundreds and ended hopes for a temporary lull. Wikipedia. In April, Israel opened the Marag Corridor, a security zone slicing across southern Gaza to pressure Hamas by dividing the territory. Part of a strategy to isolate strongholds. Wikipedia. Then comes the next phase. Israel's intent to seize military control of Gaza City. On August 7 and 8, Netanyahu's security cabinet approved a new 5-point plan: disarm Hamas, retrieve hostages, demilitarize Gaza, maintain Israeli security control, and install a new civilian administration not tied to Hamas or the Palestinian Authority. New York Post, The Times, Wikipedia. This was framed as the fastest way to end the war, yet critics warned it could become Israel's own Vietnam, getting stuck in protracted urban combat with high casualty and political costs. New York Post, The Guardian, The Times. International reaction was swift and critical. The United Nations warned that such an offensive would bring more killing, displacement, and suffering, calling for it to be immediately halted. ABC News, The Guardian. European powers, including France, Germany, Italy, and Canada, echoed concerns, some warning of concrete diplomatic consequences if humanitarian aid remained restricted or military operations intensified. The Times. Newsweek, New York Post, The Guardian. Domestically, Israel's divided military brass expressed unease, with some describing the operation as a death trap or cautioning the civilian cost would be massive. Reuters, The Washington Post, The Times, The Guardian, New York Post. Broad public protests and political tensions reflect a society debating the war's trajectory amid rising casualties and suffering on both sides. The Guardian, The Times. So when you ask, could this end Israel's Gaza offensive? What are the key features to highlight in your script's narrative? Feature 1. Design and rationale. The plan is precise. Gaza City as the psychological and operational heart of Hamas. Seizing it could dismantle command structures, disrupt logistics, and break militant morale. The multifaceted strategy, military, humanitarian, administrative, seeks not just battlefield victory but political and structural transformation of governance. New York Post, The Times, Wikipedia. Feature 2. Performance ingredients. Feature 3. Political and humanitarian analysis. This operation's success isn't determined solely by battlefield results. It hinges on whether hostages are released, whether a governing alternative can stabilize the area, and whether political backing holds. Netanyahu says he's not seeking permanent occupation, but wants a transition to a civilian administration, presumably Arab-led, after security control is secured. New York Post, The Times. Feature 4. International dynamics and ceasefire prospects. The delayed offensive, possibly weeks away as of early in mid-August, opened a window for potential ceasefire negotiations, which are ongoing via Egypt, Qatar, and the U.S. mediators. Reuters, AP News. Netanyahu now says he is aiming to secure the release of all hostages in a single deal as part of ceasefire talks, rather than phased releases. AP News. Feature 5. Critical voices and risks. Opposition voices warn of catastrophic outcomes. The UN, various international leaders, Israeli military figures, human rights groups all warn that occupation could perpetuate conflict, humanitarian collapse, and international isolation. The Guardian, The Times, New York Post, The Washington Post. In Net News. Feature 6. The tipping point question. Could this actually end the offensive? On one hand, if Gaza City falls, Hamas is dismantled, hostages freed, and a transition to civilian governance takes shape with regional or international buy-in, then yes, it could mark the effective end. On the other hand, as many warn, the power vacuum could unleash insurgency, require long-term occupation, and prolonged conflict under a different guise. The very scenario comparisons likened to Vietnam, New York Post, The Guardian, The Washington Post. When turning this into a video script weave in human stories, Israeli families seeking return of hostages, displaced Gazan civilians struggling amid famine and heat waves, military commanders wrestling with strategy, international leaders trying to craft PISL to maintain engagement without getting lost in jargon. Use layman language, talk about corridors, strongholds, evacuation zones, hostages, ceasefire, operation names, but explain them. Example: the Morag corridor is a kind of buffer zone Israel created in southern Gaza to cut off Hamas strongholds, like drawing a line across the map to squeeze supply routes. Wikipedia. Or, this 5-point plan is basically a checklist. Netanyahu laid out: disarm Hamas, free the hostages, secure the territory, pull back the military, and hand over to a civilian body. Balance the optimism of a decisive end with the sober recognition of risks and trade-offs. Show that the outcome depends not only on military might but also on diplomacy, governance, humanitarian support, and international will. You'd open with the big question, then walk through the background, design, performance, critique, and possibilities, using storytelling and plain language to keep viewers hooked. Let viewers feel the weight of every decision behind each strategic move. Our lives, politics, and history in motion. And then, May 2025 Gaza offensive. https //2 Wikipedia.org 2025_Gaza_war_ceasefire UTEM_source equals chatgpt.com 2025 Gaza war ceasefire UTM_source equals chatgpt.com. Netanyahu lays out Gaza City incursion goals as critics warn it could turn to Israel's Vietnam. Israeli takeover of Gaza City is best way 2 n war says Netanyahu says Netanyahu L7JF80ZX7 UTM_source equals chatgpt.com. Netanyahu says Gaza takeover best way forward as anger grows at home. https //2 Wikipedia.org Wiki Israeli Plan 2 Take _control of Gaza City. What's UM_source equals chatgpt.com. Israeli plan to take control of Gaza City. UTM_source equals chatgpt. Com Israel es delusional. Inhuman Gaza takeover plan could be recipe for perpetual war. Agatatepes. Abigneosko. Co-international IS. RAELS. Plan Gaza City military offensive immediately halted /story. ID equals 1244763441 and UTM_source equals chatgpt.com. UN says Israel's planned Gaza City military offensive must be ... UTM_source equals chatgpt.com. Macron calls for UN peacekeepers to stabilize Gaza. As it happened, UTM_source equals chatgpt. Calm NATO leaders give Israel a Gaza ultimatum. Newsweek. Agatatepezwwo Reuters. Corn World Middle E/ISRAELS Gaza City offensive May B weeks away leaving time ceasefire 225-08-11 UTM_source equals chatgpt.com. Israel's Gaza City offensive may be weeks away, leaving time for ceasefire. UTM_source equals chatgpt.com. Clash over Gaza plan exposed rift between Netanyahu and military brass. UTM_source equals chatgpt. Com was Netanyahu starvis Gaza. There is a whole new battle to be fought in Israel against complacency. https://www.thesun.ie/news/156733737 Israel-mobilising-4000-troops-full-occupation-Gaza. UTM_source equals chatgpt. Com Israel mobilizing 400,000 troops for full occupation of Gaza in weeks in Netanyahu's plan to end war. com/22/08/09/opinion/Netanyahu-taking control of Gaza-city-will-end-the-Israel-Hamas-whore-4-dash-war-dash-for-dash-court/UTM_source equals chatgpt.com. Michael Goodwin. Netanyahu taking control of Gaza will end the Israel-Hamas war for good. com/article/1735F5B4E 74D3D5314988C1E8A5F56C UTM_source equals chatgpt.com. Netanyahu hints that Gaza ceasefire talks now focus on the release of all hostages at once. UTM_source equals chatgpt.com. Israel achieves its goals in Gaza offensive, now must decide what's next.